DevCentral community, it is DevCentral Connects, and today is Security Sidebar. I'm John, and we're going to hang out today. I'm going to connect with all of you, and I want you to connect with me. And today, we're going to talk about going back to the cybersecurity future. So, man, if you saw the little promo by my man Peter Silva, the power of love is a curious thing. The power of cybersecurity is a curious thing. But hey, so today we're going to take a look back at National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and then we're going to take a look ahead at what lies in the future of cybersecurity and connected devices and all that stuff. So I want you guys to turn your volume up to 1.21 gigawatts, just like Tony Hines did, and let's get this thing rocking and rolling. So Silva, I see you out there, my man. It only goes to 11. No, it doesn't. Not when you're Tony Hines. You got 1.21 gigawatts. And I'm pretty sure gigawatts is spelled just like Tony said. I'm going to put that back on the screen. Gigawatts, 1.21 gigawatts. So, or if you're like Marty McFly, it's like, what in the world's a gigawatt? I don't know. No one knows. But hey, we're going to have a great time here today. DevCentral Connects with all of you. One thing I wanted to mention here at the start of the show, F5 is hosting a security summit on November the 10th, and I'm gonna pop the little URL right up there for all you guys to see. We'll have more, in future shows to kind of highlight the security summit that's coming up. But you guys can register at that URL right there, and it's a couple of hours long on November the 10th. It'll be a great time to dig into some security, some security information and details. So anyway, all right. So Jason is saying "ga," not "ja." Gigawatts, not gigawatts. So anyway, let the debate rage on how you spell the word, gigawatts. But anyway, all right. Well, hey, so I wanted to take a look back at first on the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we started this month off, and we talked about the first week. If you connect it, then protect it. And Jason and I sat down and we talked about the OWASP Top 10, the Juice Shop, if you guys remember that. And that's a great web application that you can download and play around with. It is full of vulnerabilities. This thing is just chock full of crazy vulnerabilities. But that gives you a great opportunity to go in there and test your security, devices, your security technology. So what we showed is we said, hey, here is this, Juice Shop. And, how many vulnerabilities does it have? And we were doing some cross-site scripting stuff, some injection stuff, some, known vulnerability, security risk, attacks, that kind of thing. And then we showed, hey, this thing is just chock full of problems. But then we implemented the Nginx, the web, the web application firewall, the Nginx App Protect, WAF, and it solved many of those things. So anyway, so the point is, if you connect it, then protect it, and we kind of walked through a few of those things. And so that was a really good reminder that as you connect devices to the internet, you need to protect those things. Before I go to my next point, I'm going to say, Anis Ali, hey, good to see you. Hey, good to see you too, Anis. So it's always awesome to connect with everybody out there in the community. So hey, like I said, if you've got comments, you can put them here in the comment bar or in the comment section. We're streaming live to YouTube and LinkedIn and Periscope like we always do. So great to connect with everybody. All right. So hey, if you connect it, then you got to protect it. Or said another way, don't even think about connecting something to the internet and then just forget the protection part. Don't miss the security part of this. All right. And we all play a part in that. Okay. So the next one kind of goes on the heels of that, securing devices at home and at work. And Jason did a great job showing, different security tips on passwords and, when you connect your Wi-Fi at home and you configure all that stuff. He talked about some password managers. You could use a password manager to kind of, keep track of all your passwords. That way, you try to remember these things. We'll talk about passwords here in a minute more. But that's just that's a ripe area for attackers to come at you with, is passwords and just the way that it's easy to to have people use the same ones and there's just a ripe field there for attackers to come after your password. So basically, use a really strong password when you use passwords. So when you talk about home connected devices, securing your devices at home, then do that. And when you set up your Wi-Fi at home and you have to type in your home password, you have to set that password. Don't just take the default one that the manufacturer gives you. Come up with a really strong one, a really long one, because theoretically you're only going to put that in there like one time per device, and then you can kind of set it and forget it for a while. So anyway, so make sure that thing is strong, even though it's kind of a pain to go through that. If you're on your if you're on your TV and you got to use that little remote, it's like, oh, go over to the capital, J or whatever. Anyway, but the point is you need to use a good one and a strong one. Okay, and then we talked last week about internet connected devices and the healthcare industry, and most specifically ransomware, and how that is such a huge area of attack, for a lot of cyber criminals out there today. And so these attackers will send ransomware, malware to really a variety of victims, but certainly healthcare industry are some of those. And some of these attackers, they'll say, hey, I'm only gonna send stuff to these large corporations that make billions of dollars, and down with the big, sticking it to the man kind of thing. But I'm gonna stay away from the healthcare industry and the nonprofit and like these, the good companies, as it were. But sometimes what happens is when they unleash this ransomware, it just starts to flood out there, and it's hard to know. Like, hey, what, where is the ransomware going to fall? And so it ends up, catching in its net a lot of these different victims, and the healthcare industry is some of those. So while some attackers may say, hey, I'm not going to go after healthcare, some attackers actually do go after healthcare. They're like, hey, whoever will pay me money with this ransomware attack, I'm going to go after them. And so we talked about a lot of good tips to kind of stay safe in the ransomware world. One of the big ones is the phishing attacks that happen, and that's a huge way that these attackers get the ransomware malware into your network. Whether you're a healthcare industry or not, they're going to send you these phishing emails, and you're going to click on that, or it only takes one, and then you click on it, and you're like, hey, now I got this malware. And then now all my files are starting to get encrypted, and then it's just this whole big mess. So anyway, so that's the that's some of the ransomware and healthcare industry specific stuff that we were able to talk through last week. So anyway, so those are the first 3 weeks of the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month with the If You Connect It, Protect It, and then the secured home and work devices, and then the healthcare industry with ransomware and connected devices, internet connected devices, and the healthcare industry. All right, so that's a look back. That's a look back in the past. Now we're going to step into the future, and we're going to say, hey, what are my thoughts, and maybe other people's thoughts too, about where the internet connected devices are headed in the future. So we're going to put on our little crystal ball hat here for a second. We're going to say, hey, where's this whole thing headed? And the first thing that I wanted to talk about goes back to the idea or the topic of passwords. And maybe you guys could even type in here if you want to. We can play a little back and forth. When's the last time that you did not use a password to get into something like an account or your computer or whatever? And I was thinking about this myself, and I'm like, man, I don't know that I remember having like no password at all. Like even on my phone, I have to put in like a PIN number. So, you could argue that's kind of a password of sorts. But when have I had just like literally no password at all? And so passwords are still very much around right now, but I believe the passwords themselves, the traditional type in, use 8 characters and a little special character and whatever, upper and lowercase, I think all of that is going to go bye-bye in the near future. And by near future, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so. Don't hold me to that in the year 2025. But that is where this whole industry is headed. All right. So I think that passwords themselves are going the way of the dinosaur, as it were. So there are a lot of attacks that rely on passwords. One of the most common is credential stuffing. And so you take what credential stuffing is at its core is you get these attackers that steal a bunch of usernames and passwords, and then they say, hey, I'm going to try, if let's say someone stole my username and password off of my, I don't know, whatever, my Gmail account. I'll just make something up. And then they were like, you know what? I bet John uses that same password on his bank account. So I'm going to try the password that I stole from this account, and I'm just going to try it over here on this other account that I think he might have, an account on. And so they'll just stuff my credentials into this other account and hope that it works. And guess what? A lot of times it does work because people reuse the same passwords over and over. And so, and in fact, I saw one statistic that a group just did. They said that 52% of all of their users use between zero, well, I guess maybe one and 5 passwords, period. Like they've only got a population of 5 passwords that they'll ever use. So what this does, if you turn that on its head and you say, hey, maybe I'm a bank, or maybe I'm a pretty large corporation that has to manage a bunch of usernames and passwords and whatever, that creates a huge headache for these companies, because they're like, hey, if John's going to use the same password on that application, and then mine, and then the next guy and the next guy, as soon as any one of us get compromised, then he's compromised, right? Then I can't trust that he is who he says he is. And so so the lack of diversity in your passwords is not only a bad security practice for yourself, but it also it also comes into play for the companies who have to deal with the ramifications of that. So anyway, so I think that passwords are on their way out. There's a group called Fido, and it's not just a dog that goes and retrieves the bone that you throw across the yard. Fido stands for Fast Identity Online. So F is fast, ID is identity, O is online. So Fido, and they've come up with this standard, and their whole thing is, we want to create an open standard that everyone, like all these technology companies and bodies can wrap their arms around and can align to. And we at Fido, I say we, I'm not at Fido, but the Fido group is all about saying, hey, we want to make it so that passwords go away, and it's we just use like biometrics and other forms of authentication to get users to log into their various accounts. So a quick kind of history of Fido is they started back actually in like 2009. It's like the really beginnings. Is like the kind of prior to itself being formed. But the Fido Alliance actually was founded like formally back in 2012, and then it has slowly gained speed and momentum. Where like I guess as far back as 2015, Microsoft said that Fido authentication would be supported in its Windows 10 operating system. And then you move forward, there was a Fido China working group, so now we're starting to get international with this thing. There was a web authentication, the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, launched a standards effort in February of 2016. You had a Fido Japanese working group that was in 2016, and on and on. So there are many countries, many continents, many companies that are a part of this now. Apple is actually now on the Fido board. They joined back in January of 2020. You've got different devices that now say, hey, I'm going to be compliant with Fido, where you can use two-factor authentication for a security key using Fido. So anyway, I'll say all that to say that Fido is is kind of this standard that a lot of different companies are starting to wrap their arms around and come in alignment with. And the whole heart of that is to say, hey, we want to get rid of the traditional password as we know it. So anyway, so check out Fido if you haven't looked them up. And that's just one example of kind of this movement of companies and technology to say we want to go away from the traditional passwords. All right, so no more passwords. I think we're going to have no more passwords in the future. All right, I also think that the perimeter, the beautiful, well-defined network perimeter that we've all come to know and love, that it's like, hey, when you are in this company, or when we create our network architecture and we've got these devices and we've got our nice perimeter out here before we get out to the big bad internet, I think that perimeter has not only started to slowly dismantle, but I think it's going to be gone one day. So I think that the perimeter is going away. The traditional network perimeter is going away, and I think that from a user perspective, it certainly brings into thought that, hey, if I have a device, if I have a laptop, or if I have my phone or whatever it is, then I think in the future, you're not necessarily going to be able to say, hey, I rely on the protection of what typically is the network perimeter, right? If you're a company, then you're going to say, hey, I used to have this beautifully defined network perimeter that everything inside is safe and secure and beautiful, and I don't have to worry about it, whatever. And then everything outside of that thing is looking bad, and I just don't even want to think about that stuff. I think that the architectural alignment of where everything is going, that well-defined perimeter is not going to be there anymore. So anyway, that also brings into play this idea of zero trust, this zero trust model. So if you don't have a very well-defined perimeter, if you don't have a perimeter at all, now it's almost like hey, every man for himself, kind of an idea. And just who knows what kind of device you've got, or what's loaded on that thing, or where you're coming from, or where you're going to, or any of that kind of stuff. And so it creates this idea for companies now to say, I'm inherently not going to trust anybody or anything. It's a zero trust model. And so I have to put in place technologies and policies and architectures to say, how do I know that you are who you say you are? And how do I know that I need to trust you? And how do I know that the device that you're holding in your hand or that you're typing on right now is legitimate, and all of those things? It's not chock full of malware and you're about to bring on some ransomware, stuff, whatever. And so this whole idea of zero trust, I think, is a big one that's just going to continue to grow legs. I mean, it's already out there now. You hear about it, but it's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger. So anyway, I think that the number of connected devices is only going to grow, of course. Right? I did some research on this thing to see how many connected devices are out there right now. So is it? I think Cisco did a survey back in like 2010, 2012-ish, and they predicted that by 2015 there would be like 25 billion internet connected devices. And so that was in 2015. And so then by 2016, the actual number was somewhere in the neighborhood of 26 billion connected devices. And so, so they were pretty well on the mark. They also predicted in that earlier study that by 2020, there would be 50 billion connected devices. And so here we are in 2020, here we are. And so the people that count these things, which, by the way, I mean, I know that there's like statistical models and there's estimations and all that. I mean, nobody's out there going like, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I counted 50 billion and one devices. But nonetheless, they can use modeling and all that stuff to figure out about how many there are. And right now there's about 35 billion connected devices. Which, man, I don't think you have to look too much further than probably your own home or apartment or wherever you live, or where you do business or whatever, to know that, hey, you've probably got a phone that's connected, you've got a laptop that's connected, you've got a TV that's connected, you've got a maybe some kind of listening speaker device that's connected. You've got I saw a commercial on TV the other day for a kitchen faucet. A kitchen faucet that's connected to the internet, which, we shouldn't be surprised, right? And literally these people, they're like, hey, kitchen faucet, fill up 35 milliliters of water in my glass or in my pot or whatever. And then, it showed the little faucet coming on, and it would pour in the 35 milliliters, and then it would just kick off automatically. So there's a lot of technology and intelligence in the kitchen faucet, but certainly it's connected to the internet to be able to do all that stuff, right? So it's also listening. So, man, it's like we're creating these living environments where all these devices are listening to our conversations. And so, but that's the world we live in. It's crazy stuff. But that just, that shows you that, hey, we're only going to be connecting more. We're only going to be growing the number of connected devices, which frankly grows the threat landscape of what's out there to be, number one, to be attacked, and then, or number two, to be used in an attack. If I can somehow take over ownership of your new kitchen sink that, dumps water out into your, your jar or whatever, then maybe I can somehow factor that, to be able to be used as a part of a bot net to be able to launch some, UDP DDoS attack against my victim or whatever it is, right? So anyway, so that's so there's only more connected devices are going to be happening, which is just gonna, things are just gonna get crazier. And so that brings me to my last thing that I was going to mention in terms of the future of where I think things are going. And you've heard about this as well. It's kind of up and coming right now. It's not it's not pervasive. It's not totally widespread, but it's headed that way. And that is the 5G technology. So 5G, you'll hear from your cell phone provider, hey, we offer the largest 5G coverage in the world and all that kind of stuff. A couple things about 5G. Number one, it's supremely fast. It's much faster than your current internet connection is at home right now, regardless of, unless you've got like fiber to the desktop, which most of us don't, then 5G is going to offer much, much faster speeds than your, than your typical, internet service provider. And so I think what might happen is, like for me, for example, I may have like a cable modem or, that type of a thing where I have my internet service provider and I pay them money every month and they provide me X number of, megabit downloads and the X number of megabit upload, speed, right? I think what might happen in the future with 5G is if I can go to my cell phone provider and they can say, hey, we've got your home covered with cell coverage at the 5G level, and then you can just have this little, this little jet pack or this little data pack, as it were, that's going to connect to our cell network. And then you can just run all your home devices off of that thing. And oh, by the way, it's about 10 times faster than your fastest internet that you ever had with your cable provider. Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the 5G, right? I'm going to say, hey, sign me right on up. And so 5G is coming, but 5G is still a little bit of ways with respect to the infrastructure that needs to be in place, and then also the devices themselves have to be 5G capable. So even if your provider says, hey, we've got we've just installed these brand new 5G towers and all that around your home or around your city, so you're good to go. You're 5G. You can do this thing. Well, if I'm running the old iPhone, XR or whatever, or whatever it is that's not 5G capable, then I'm not going to realize the benefits of 5G. That's just the way that it works. It's like it takes both. It takes the infrastructure from the cell, providers to install all the 5G infrastructure with the towers and the new antennas and all those kinds of things, because they've got to put new antennas in for 5G. It's like a totally new technology. They can't just use the antennas that are out there today. They're going to have to put a lot of repeaters in. It runs on a much higher frequency, which means the signal can't go as far, which means they're going to need to put like different repeater type stations, more in closer proximity to one another around a given area. And so that's why it's going to take a while to really build this whole thing out to really be 5G capable all the way around. But anyway, but it is coming and it's going to be supremely fast. And I just think that a lot of people are going to jump on that bandwagon. I know a lot of people have talked about, hey, there's other little nuanced issues with 5G, are people going to steal my, identity and privacy and all that stuff, which, that's a thing to think about, is someone going to be able to steal all of my personal information? But oh, by the way, remember back, you got your kitchen sink listening to you right now. So that's another thing to think about. So as you have that, that overall discussion or that overall thought in your mind, if you were to say, hey, I don't want to really disclose all of my personal, comings and goings, then take a good hard look around your whole setup to say, do I have a speaker sitting next to my bed that I can say, hey, speaker, play this song, or, play this radio station, or whatever it is. Well, guess what? That thing's listening to you all the time. It's constantly listening, if nothing else, for you to say the little, key word that like wakes it up, but it's also just listening. Your phone's the same way. If you have an iPhone, you've got the whole Siri thing going on. And so it's, there's a lot of different things listening to you anyway. And so that's something to think about, to say, hey, what are all the different places that are taking my information and, listening to me and maybe stealing my identity and all that stuff. So just, so think through that holistically, as you walk down the road of what technology you want to adapt and adopt for yourself. So anyway, here's one. I know Anish, you've asked some questions here, which is awesome, and I know Jason and some others have had some great answers. So I appreciate you guys kind of helping each other out. It's what we do in the community. But Jason here, I'll throw up one thing that Jason said, and that is he's heard that some 5G is going to crush the home Wi-Fi need, maybe good for reduction of complexity and cost, but doesn't sound bueno for security. Exactly, kind of what I was just talking about. So that's where you kind of weigh the cost. If you are my teenage daughter, who I was talking to the other day, and she was like, "Hey, Dad, what's the deal with this whole 5G thing?" And I was trying to explain, the different frequencies and the different wavelength, and all the complexities of how the thing works. And she was like, "Yeah, I don't care about any of that." She was like, "How fast is this thing?" And I said, "Well, if you were to download like a 4K Ultra HD movie onto your phone, at that huge, whatever gigabit kind of size, if you were to do that over, say, a fairly typical cable modem speed today, then it would take, X number of hours or whatever it would be." And I said, with 5G, by comparison, you could download that whole Ultra HD 4K, resolution movie onto your phone in about 6 seconds. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, forget the whole thing. I mean, you can have all of my identity. I must have the speed. If I can have a movie on my phone in 6 seconds, then done," right? So anyway, so it's I think a lot of people are going to have that same mentality that, like, hey, the speed of this new 5G stuff far outweighs anything that security-minded people care about. So I'm not saying that that's a great thing, and I'm not saying that we need to stop thinking about the security part of that. We certainly do, but I think a lot of people are going to just rush to the speeds that 5G offers, and they're going to be like, whatever with the rest of it. I don't really care, right? So anyway, Sarah had a great point here. This is where your family impacts your threat model. Exactly. So in this case, again, my teenage daughter, if she's on my home Wi-Fi and she's downloading all kinds of crazy stuff, then, at 5G speeds, which she wants to do, then that's going to suddenly impact me. So this is where, you take that holistic approach, right? And say, I don't want to give away all my identity and all my, personal information. But, oh, by the way, my teenager is doing that on my behalf. So thank you, child. And then this is where we have a little, hey, let's talk about cybersecurity, as a family. And I think those are good discussions, not that your kids really want to talk about cybersecurity around the table, but I think every now and then that's a good topic to have. So anyway, Pasilva mentioned that the Lte Long-Term Evolution is what that stands for. It came out in about 2009 to 11-ish. Yeah, so maybe about 10 or so years ago. It could be a few years for 5G. I totally agree. 5G is not happening in the next year or two. It may be 5-ish years before it's really, prevalent. Even though you hear commercials about it today, the service providers, your cell phone provider wants you to think 5G because they want you to think, hey, I'm going to get all these speeds. And maybe in some extremely targeted markets, there are some 5G capable towers that are already installed. But for the most part, I'm going to say the high 90% of us are not going to realize the benefits of that for several years probably. So anyway, but that's coming. That's the whole future part of this thing, right? So anyway, all right, man. So we've looked back at National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. If you connect it, protect it with our Juice Shop application that we wanted to, wrap our arms around and say, hey, this is something that we need to look at. And then we looked at securing your devices at home. And Jason did a great job of sharing some tips on that. Then we talked about ransomware and healthcare industry and how that is just a crazy time. And then today, excuse me, the future of internet connected devices. And I've given you kind of my crystal ball of no more passwords. I don't think we're going to have any more passwords in the future. I think it's just going to be like fingerprints and, and eyeball scans and maybe like a 2-factor kind of one-time passcode that they send, that they text to your phone, that kind of stuff. And then I think we're going to do away with passwords completely. The perimeter is going away, and I think will go away. And the whole zero trust model is just going to become more and more important. And then the number of devices are just going to grow. And I don't think 5G is going to help that in terms of shrinking the number of devices. So get ready for the future of cybersecurity. And it'd be interesting in a few years to look back and see like how accurate was on this. But I think a lot of these is I think we're heading in direction in a lot of these things. I think that it's good to have those talks around the table with your family, with your coworkers. We're not at the water cooler probably physically right now with coronavirus, but as you have conversations and all that, we all play a part in cybersecurity. And you don't have to be the cybersecurity chief officer at your company in order to play a very important role in the cybersecurity posture of your company. But then beyond your company, like we said, just at home, for your own personal identification, your own personal privacy matters, and all of that. So it's everyone plays a part and everyone is involved. So we want you to be as protected as you are connected, right? And we want to all be wise and good, citizens of our connected internet out there today. So hey man, it's been a great time. Frankly, the time's kind of flown by for me. It's been a lot of fun to connect with all of you. And we're here every single Thursday at 12:30 Pacific. So Jason and I will be back together next week, and we're going to have the DevCentral Connect show again. Don't forget about the Security Summit that I mentioned at the beginning. We popped that URL up there, and I think it's also in the comments. So that's coming up on November the 10th. So again, to you, the DevCentral community, the greatest online community in the history of the world, I say thank you. It's an honor to be a part of the DevCentral community, and it's awesome to connect with every one of you here at DevCentral Connects every Thursday. So I hope you have a great week, a great weekend, and we will see you again here live next Thursday at 12:30 Pacific. You guys have a great one.